Good morning, everybody. It's now 8 o'clock. I see we've got a lot of people online already. So welcome to this first group, our Renew group. I'm going to share a little bit more about that. In the meantime, what I just want to do is I want to introduce myself. So my name is Werner Teichert. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm also the director of the South African DBT Institute. We've got a few panelists here today. We've got Dr. Miriam Close, who's a psychiatrist. We've got Dr. Sriya Ramasa, who's also a psychiatrist. And we've got Hanneke Jonas, which is an occupational therapist. And especially in the second part of today, they'll be joining us as we answer questions. I think that's the most important part about today, is the fact that there's a need. There's such a need. I mean, we initially said we want to start these groups, and we said we just want to make a difference. We said we want to be able to provide a platform for health professionals to be able to get a space where they can actually listen, they can learn, they can engage. And I think we've been really overwhelmed by the response. Today we've got anything from psychiatrists to social workers to psychologists to specialists to pediatricians. We've got a surgeon online as well today. We've got people from across the country. So welcome to this first group. Just as a means of checking in, I'd just like you to maybe say in the chat column, I'd just like you to say hello, I can hear you properly, just to make sure everybody's on board. Okay, I see someone is saying my mic volume is low. I just want to make sure is that everybody's case. Okay, excellent. I see everybody can hear me. Fantastic. You do always have the option to comment anonymously. So if you choose to do that, you can do that as well. Okay, excellent. Awesome. For that one person that said they can't quite hear me, maybe try and adjust your speaker volume. That could be something you can just look at. But I see for the rest, people say they can hear me perfectly. Fantastic. Okay, so let's get started. Now, the key thing about today is in starting this group, I found that there were three key needs. The one need is a need to learn and to listen. So there's people that said, you know what, I want to gain new knowledge or skills, specifically pertaining to DBT. And these individuals said, I'm curious about how and what you're going to do. And that's perfectly fine. If you're here today and you say, Vanna, I just want to learn, I want to listen, I'm curious, what's this all about? You've got a panel, what are they going to say? What's going to happen? You are most welcome to just learn, to listen, engage with us afterwards. I think that's a big part of the purpose for today as well. The second need we identified was people want to link up. They want to support other practitioners. They want to say, well, you know what, I'm someone that feels like I can help. And we'll see as today unfolds that you will be desperately needed probably within the next couple of weeks and couple of months. And you want to be an active participant. You just don't want to, you don't want to be part of the audience. You actually say, I want to engage. That's awesome. So that's a link up need. And the third need is a need for support or motivation. And hopefully today will be a validating and encouraging experience for you. And also we will, at the end of the day, we will provide you access to certain resources for that need. So you might be attending today, and I think that's what I found, especially practitioners that function in, and we are at different stages. I mean, so practitioners that function in government health, practitioners that function in private practice. Suddenly we've got Discovery saying there's lower rates. So everybody is in that space where they feel they need some kind of containment. And hopefully today, if nothing else, will be also quite a validating experience for you. And what I'd like you to do is as a means of checking in, I'd just like you to write your primary need for today. There's no judgment. It's just about saying, am I here to learn? Am I here to link up, or do I need support? I'm going to give you a few seconds just to maybe make that that note for me, then I can also get a sense of what the big need is today. Okay, I see. Okay, excellent. Fantastic. Okay. Towards the end of today, what I'll do is we're gonna for each one of these sections, we're gonna have what's the next steps as well. Okay, excellent. Okay, great. Let's get started then. All right. So you might have heard the word renew groups, and it's the important question here is, what is the purpose of this renew group? Why the word renew? So we obviously we spend a lot of time giving to our clients. We spend a lot of time investing in our clients, our patients, whether you're a specialist, whether you're a GP, whether you're a psychologist, whether you're a social worker, whether you're a lay counselor, whether you're a psychiatrist. We spend a lot of time investing in our patients. But the thing is, there's very little that just focuses on the mental health for us as healthcare professionals. And I think the need here was almost therapy for the therapist or therapy for the doctor. And there's two key needs here. And the one is, do I want to learn a skill, or do I need motivation? And this is a space that we want to create during the lockdown period, but also afterwards, for you to be able to come every week for 1 hour and say, well, I'm logging in. We're going to apply for CPD points for these sessions as well. But the idea is for you to log in and to be able to say, for this 1 hour, I can learn, I can listen, I can engage with an audience of people. And lastly, it's your ability to access resources. Okay. Now, today we're going to talk about mindfulness in chaos. Now, as an introduction, there's a story I'd like to share with you. My daughter is 3 years old at the moment, and she's got a really amazing imagination. And at least once or twice a week, she wakes up in the middle of the night and she comes and calls me and she says, "Daddy, there's a dragon in my tent." So we've got this little tent in her room, and this tent, she sees it as a castle, you know. So it's like I said, she's got an amazing imagination. And she wakes me up and she says, "Dad, you need to come and take the dragon out of my tent." So then I have to pretend to walk into this tent, and I have to pretend to fight the dragon and then throw it out the window. And the one day I made the mistake of saying, "I'm also throwing a unicorn out the window." And she said, no, unicorns are really kind. You don't throw unicorns out the window. And so for her, that's a solution. That's a solution. For her is the fact that Dad has fought the dragon, he's thrown it out the window. For her, that's amazing. I think for us as healthcare professionals, we're wide awake in the midst of this chaos, and we don't really have anybody walking in and fighting the dragon. In fact, the thing that I'd like to acknowledge as we start is the fact that we are in fact on the front line of fighting this virus. We are on the front line of people being very anxious. We are on the front line. If you're here today and you're a specialist, you work in casualties, you work in a hospital, you risk your life every single day going in there to help people. We are the people at the front line of this challenge. And I think that's why this group is so important. And as we go along today, you'll also start to see this group, I think, is going to be not this group only. We're collaborating with SISA and UTASA and SASOP, and we're trying to really get as many people together as possible to be able to say we're collaborating. We're going broader than just our own group, but this is one space that you can come to. And we are wide awake in the midst of the chaos. And the question is, how do we respond to the real danger and emotional stress as healthcare professionals? Because we can't fight it. I mean, we know that from an evolutionary perspective, we've got 3 predominant responses to stress and trauma. You know, so there's obviously nuances, but you know, underneath all of those. But the first thing is we fight. And the difficulty is we don't have a lion we can fight. We don't have a bear we can fight. We're not faced with something tangible that we can fight. We're fighting an invisible virus. And we can't really flee, because fleeing is literally not an option. You can't even walk your dog. How on earth? And I think that's where the topic for the series also comes along, when running is not an option. Running is literally not an option if you're outside. But as healthcare professionals, we're on the front line. We can run, but I think for most of us, it's not an option. We have to engage with this. And finally, we have a freeze response. And I think that's where a lot of our clients and patients are, is they're frozen. They don't actually know what to do. So not running 101. Now, the British Psychological Society has actually brought something out. They had an amazing webinar yesterday where they actually spoke to healthcare professionals, and they spoke to specifically dealing with the psychological health of healthcare professionals. Now, they say that this virus, based on what's happened in China, what's based on what's happened in Italy as well, they say that psychological, as a psychological fraternity responding to this, or just in terms of the psychological health from every single angle, from every single discipline, they say there are 3 key phases in responding psychologically to this. The first one is the preparation phase. And I believe that's where we are in South Africa at the moment, where we're setting up more resources, more beds. But in terms of the psychological support of healthcare professionals, I think we're also in the preparation phase, where we've got different people mobilizing different resources. And this is an anticipatory anxiety. We're planning may happen at a high level in a rapid time frame, leading to anticipatory anxiety about the unknown. And I think a lot of us are there. With limited time to plan and limited input into the preparation phase, many staff may not report feeling prepared for the outbreak. Many UK health trusts have now passed through this phase. I believe that's where we are at the moment. We're busy planning. We're busy trying to get things together. Because by the time we reach the active phase, which obviously all of us are hoping we don't, we're planning for the worst, but we're hoping for the best. We're hoping we don't get there. And that's where heroics and surge to solution, that's where people stand up and say, I want to do something. I want to help. So if you're here today to learn and to say, I want to get new skills, that's amazing. And I think that those skills might, if we need them, I think those will be really crucial as we go into an active phase where people actually start getting sick in bigger numbers. And we hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, as a psychological community, but also as specialists attending this group, that's obviously something very important to take note of. Now, there's a paradox that I think us as healthcare professionals sit with. I call it the paradoxical dance. And what I'm going to share with you specifically is this paradoxical dance. I'm going to illustrate something on my iPad. Okay, so as healthcare professionals, we're quite accustomed to showing people and to help people to stay within the regulation zone. Okay, so there's a zone in the middle here where normal human emotion takes place. We know this. The difficulty, I think, us as healthcare professionals that we have is we underestimate the fact that if there's a trigger in someone's environment, we see that their emotions go up, and there's a level of anxiety, there's a level of some people actually might get angry. So the emotions go up. And I think what we as healthcare professionals often miss is the fact that when a patient's emotions go up, ours might not necessarily go up to the same level, but they also go up. And I think what's happened in this specific case, as healthcare professionals, we also didn't get the manual how to actually deal with this. We didn't get the manual about how to deal with an international pandemic. Which means we are also stretched in terms of our own coping resources. People aren't able to go to the gym. People aren't able to de-stress. They're not even able to go for that coffee that they might with a friend. They're not even able to engage in leisure activities. And I think that's why mindfulness becomes so important. For us as healthcare professionals to also say that, and the paradoxical dance here would be, is the fact that there's a study that I did in 2013. And the study was done among psychologists who experienced the suicide of a patient. And it was after they experienced suicide of a patient, what was their response? And I found a paradoxical response. I found people saying, in the session, I found them saying, I'm not anxious, but I could see them, they're visibly trembling. I could see that they say there were no signs that the person was going to do it, while saying all of the signs that were there. Thirdly, they said, I exhausted all avenues while asking if there was another avenue they could have explored. And this just tells me about this paradox that we as clinicians, I heard one psychiatrist say during the week, us as healthcare professionals, we make the worst patients because we often don't acknowledge the own anxiety that we have. And I think that's why this group is just for you. It's if you're sitting here and you're saying, well, I want to do this for me. We're not going to discuss patients. This is not a multidisciplinary team meeting where we're now unpacking a patient's symptoms. It's you. You are on the couch for these sessions. And what I want to invite you into is to let go of this paradox that I have to be a person that somehow at the moment, I have to be the hero. At this moment, it's about you also saying, how can I acknowledge and how can I deal with my own anxiety around this issue? Now, DBT provides us a model for flattening the emotional curve. Now, some of you might be very well versed in DBT. Some of you have not heard about DBT, Dialectical Behaviour Therapy. So Dialectical Behaviour Therapy was initially developed for patients with borderline personality disorder. Now, a patient with borderline personality disorder, for those of you that have dealt with it and deal with it quite regularly, those are generally the patients who have difficulties with regulating emotions. In other words, it's patients that either go into really highs, but it's not an emotional high, like I'm feeling really good. It's a distressing high where they go outside of their regulation zone. They go outside of a zone where they feel like still in control of their emotions. Or, and generally when they're up there, they say and do things that they feel really sorry and they feel shame and guilt about later on. Or they go really low, and that's where patients become suicidal. I call that space the dungeon. And DBT, specifically Dialectical Behaviour Therapy, was developed for individuals with these really highs and really lows. Right now, we find that DBT is evidence-based for depression, for anxiety, for bipolar mood disorder, for a variety of Axis 1 and Axis 2 disorders using the DSM-4 language. But as for today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to explain DBT as a model for flattening the emotional curve and flattening your emotional curve as well. And what Lynn actually says, she says there's 4 primary ways to respond to a serious problem in life. And by the way, I'm going to make these slides available as well if you want them. The resources that get shared here, you are welcome to use as well. The first one is to change how you feel about the problem. Now, this is a difficult one because right now we are confronted with quite a big challenge. So changing how you feel about the problem is kind of what we're looking at today. And that's the emotional regulation and mindfulness skills. The second way to deal with it is tolerate and accept it. And that's a topic for next week. We're going to look at accepting what we got, not what we wanted. Us wanting things to be different is not going to make it different. Our anxiety, and this is going to be elaborated on quite a bit next week, but our anxiety about the situation is not going to make the situation better. So we've got an opportunity to say, how do we accept this? How do we integrate this? Because the quicker we can move towards accepting the situation, it doesn't mean we approve of it. It doesn't maybe mean we want it. It just means that we've gotten to a point where we say we're no longer fighting it, and we're actually saying we're mobilizing our own resources and the resources around us. And then the third way of dealing with the problem is to figure out how to solve the problem. And that's what we're going to cover in week number 3. We're going to look at surviving the crisis. How do we actually solve this problem? And the last one that Linan actually says, and I think she kind of put this in tongue in cheek, it says the last option we have is to stay miserable or possibly even make it worse by using those skills. And so I think she kind of said that by tongue in cheek. But the point is, those are essentially from a DBT perspective 4 primary ways that we respond to a serious problem. Now, enter mindfulness. Now, the question that I'm sure most of you have read on mindfulness, and I'm sure most of you know that there's heaps of evidence that suggests that mindfulness is actually the foundation of a lot of the therapies that we find today being very effective. But the question I put in there is this carry floss. So if I'm going to engage in mindfulness exercises and there's a part of my brain that's going, oh, I'm just being silly right now, for what it's worth, and I can send you through all of this online as well if you want to, there's empirical evidence for that it reduces rumination for therapists and for clients, stress reduction, improved working memory, and you can read the rest. So there's heaps of evidence that actually suggests that mindfulness is a very, very effective treatment. In fact, mindfulness is the core of all DBT. Now, what I'd like to do, I'd like you to, we're going to take about 2 or 3 minutes, and I'd like you to actually do a mindfulness exercise with me. You might have done this before, but considering what we've just said, my hope is that this will be something that you can do now, but something that you can also use as a resource for yourself. Remember, you're on the couch at the moment. You're the one who's getting the assistance, but there's also, you can probably use this in therapy as well. I'd just like to also say that this is one of literally tens of hundreds of different mindfulness exercises, but I want to do this one today because I found it very effective in my own life, but also in those of my clients. So what I'd like you to do is, where you're sitting, I'd like you to find a nice comfortable space. I'd like you to sit preferably with both feet on the ground. And what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to take a nice deep breath in and slowly out. I'd like you to do that 3 times. And then what I'd like you to do is the next time you breathe in, I want you to breathe in, but I want you to hold, I want you to tense up your muscles. Try and tense it up from your head all the way to your feet as much as possible when you breathe in. When you breathe out, I want you to let go. I want you to literally let go of the tension, breathing in, breathing out. I'm going to give you a few seconds just to do that. Okay. Now, I'm obviously going through this exercise quite quickly because I don't really want to spend too much time on that. Once again, it's a resource for you. My recommendation is that during this time that you actually make time to do this. The science behind it, obviously the neuroscience behind it, the effect that it has on your stress levels and cortisol levels, it's not within the scope of today, but I really recommend that you take 10 minutes a day and spend doing something like this. We're going to just unpack, or not unpack, we're going to discover a few other exercises you can do a little bit later. Mindfulness is the foundation of all DBT skills. Now, being in control of mindfulness is being in control of your mind rather than letting your mind be in control of you. Example, the Matrix. Now, most of you, if you're a healthcare professional in this group, it means you probably have seen the movie that was released in the early 2000s called The Matrix. Now, there's one section where the guy gets shot at, and if you haven't seen the movie, you probably would have seen the video clip somewhere. A guy gets shot at, and what he does is he ducks underneath the different bullets coming his way. And I like explaining mindfulness in this way, specifically for clients that have difficulty with emotional regulation. And I think in our case, in this situation, it's about us also being aware. I think awareness is a very, very important word in mindfulness. Us being aware of our own emotions that come our way. And it's the ability to see it quicker, to recognize your thoughts and your emotions quicker, and be able to respond in a way that you actually help yourself regulate. You can contain yourself in a more effective way. And I think that's where mindfulness is the core. And in mindfulness then, it brings you into full awareness, being aware of the present moment. Example, your thoughts, emotions, physical sensations without judgment and without trying to change it. Now, this is a very important concept because as clinicians, I think we've got, and on the one side, we've got the opportunity to say, can we be mindful in this situation? Because a mindless response might actually be more damaging to ourselves and to our clients in this moment. The second thing is about attentional control, staying focused on one thing at a time. And that's very important for us. I think we've got so much information, we've got so much data coming at us, we've got so much stimulus coming at us, that our ability to stay focused on one thing at a time, especially if we're going to go into an active phase, this is going to become a crucial skill. And the 3 states of mind that I want to just introduce very quickly, if you've done DBT for a while, you would have, or you've been introduced to DBT, you would have seen this, but I'm going to introduce it anyway for those of you that haven't seen it. Now, we've got reasonable mind, we've got wise mind, we've got emotion mind. Now, what I want to share with you today, and I actually want to draw this for you, is we've got 3 states of mind that I've mentioned here. So you've got wise mind, which is known as the middle part skills. We've got emotional mind. And we've got reasonable or rational mind. Now, if we look at an example, for example, from a series called Big Bang Theory, with reasonable mind, we find that someone like, for example, Sheldon, he's someone that generally functions in reasonable mind the whole time. Now, if we as individuals function in reasonable mind the whole time, we are literally going to get nothing done because we will be overthinking everything. If we go to the other side of the coin, because that's what dialectical behavior therapy, dialectic means 2 sides of the same argument can be true at the same time. Emotional mind, if we go just into emotional mind, if I would go, for example, if I were to play golf and I just go and play in emotion mind, I probably wouldn't make it past the first hole because I would be playing a shot and then I would probably break my club and throw it in the water. I'd be just in emotion mind. And the idea is to say, how can we synthesize these 2 using mindfulness? How can we find a way sometime during the day to synthesize reasonable mind and emotional mind? Because the thing about DBT is it tries to actually synthesize these 2. Now, you might find yourself that you might be there at different stages. You might feel like I'm in emotion mind right now. Or you might feel like, okay, I'm just verging over there. I'm just going into emotion mind a little bit. I'm just going to make this a little bit larger. I hope that helps. Or you might be finding yourself in rational, reasonable mind, and you're just rational. The idea is that mindfulness helps you when you are there to be able to say, well, you know what, I'm just grounding myself in a way that I can move into wise mind. And the idea about wise mind is like I said, it synthesizes your rational, it synthesizes the intellectual with the emotional. In other words, I'm getting more emotions or I'm getting more rationality, depending on where you are. If you find yourself that you're just there, you're just in rational mind, just reasonable the whole time, it could be very important for you to do mindfulness in terms of getting in touch with your own emotions and your own thoughts, to have a wise mind response, and I think, quite frankly, to have a more human response. So those are the key elements of states of mind. Okay. And then core mindfulness skills that I'm going to go through quite briefly, because I think the more important part is I'd like to go through a bit of a theory, and then I'd like to hand over to the panel. What I'd like to ask you, as I'm finishing off this section, I'd like you to there's a Q&A section. You'll see if you're on your phone, it's at the top of your screen. If you're on your computer, it's the bottom of your screen. There's a little button that says Q&A. Our panelists are actually on the Q&A already. So what I'd like you to do for the next 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to spend discussing the last part. I'd like you to start asking questions so the second part of today, when we do get the panel involved, that there's obviously a conversation that's flowing. Now, core mindfulness skills, we've mentioned wise mind, these states of mind. Are you able to get into the middle? And as these 3 weeks go along, we're obviously going to unpack that a bit more. The what skills, and that's often when I get the question, okay, but mindfulness, how do I, what is it that I actually need to do? So the what skills are observe, describe, participate. And observe is where whatever you're busy doing, you're actually engaging with being centered on one thing, but you're trying to integrate as many of your senses as possible. I find that the almost like the entry or the gateway to mindfulness is engaging with your senses. And that could be something like having a cup of coffee. It could be something I'm drinking a cup of coffee really slowly. I love coffee. So for me, the different flavors coffee, every single morning, what I do is I choose a different flavor and I have that coffee, but I try it generally. My coffee is cold before I finished it because I try and get every single flavor in there. Another exercise that I sometimes give my patients to do, and this is something that I'm sure it's a bit of a judgment, but it's effective nonetheless. I ask them to find the ugliest plant in their garden, or if they don't have a garden, to find a space where there's a plant that they really go, well, why is this in there? And to go to it and actually find one of the leaves and say, let me really observe what is this all about? And without exception, once they start really observing, they start seeing textures, they start seeing something quite different. What happens to your brain is it actually allows it to center. I often describe it as it's like if there's a stream of stress, mindfulness just interrupts that stream for a little while so that your body and actually your that psychologically and cognitively you take a break from this extreme stress. Observing then means using your internal and external, recognizing your internal and external experiences by setting things aside. And I think what happened a little bit earlier with the breathing and also the bed muscle relaxation, you might have experienced a little bit of that. And there might actually be a bit of resistance to you doing these exercises simply because these emotions come up. And then the ability to describe. I generally recommend having a piece of paper or your phone next to you while you're busy doing an exercise like this. Please put your phone on airplane mode. There's no phone calls, there's no WhatsApps, there's no emails coming through. But the idea is that you find a way to also describe what is it that I'm experiencing, and I can actually write that down. And lastly, participate. There's a little voice in the back of your mind that's probably going, well, this is silly, why am I doing this? If not, that's fantastic. But if you're anything like me, the moment I start getting quiet, I start thinking, well, I should have fed the dog. What is that I need to do next week? So there's all sorts of things my mind immediately starts going towards. And participating then means staying in the moment without holding back, bringing yourself back in the moment. And I think then the three important house skills is non-judgmentally, staying focused, and to be effective. Find something that's effective to you. Traditional meditation methods aren't effective for everybody. There's so much research that's been done on meditation, the effectiveness of it, but I have found that for some patients it just doesn't work. A walk through the garden, or a time in nature, or a time like I do, having coffee, that is something that is very effective as well. So the idea is to say what works. Okay? And finally, for this week, mindfulness in chaos. I haven't gone towards the thing that I've heard like 1,000 times this week. Every single person that gives psychological advice say, get into your routine, make sure that you set new goals, etc. I've heard that so many times. I haven't gone there today because I'm kind of assuming that everybody that's on this group has probably read something like that, or found something that says, what are things that I can actually do during this time to maintain a routine, etc. What I'm going to go with very specifically today is for you to say, what can I do during this time? And I would say use seemingly tedious moments as a time to center yourself. For example, taking a mindful shower. I find this very effective. It's a daily activity that everybody does. Showering, bathing, a time of cleaning yourself, and using that time to feel the temperature of the water. If you're taking a shower, to hear the water running, to experience, to smell the soap, to feel the warmth, to feel the temperature on your body. Drinking coffee very slowly, like I said. Take time to look at the color of the coffee, to really smell the coffee, to not just gulp it down, but to maybe keep it in your mouth a little bit longer. Try and feel, try and taste if there's a little bit, if you can taste different nuances, or the different textures to the taste. And then the second thing is take advantage of being forced to slow down. This is very important. I think for a lot of us, we're very frustrated by the fact that we can't practice optimally. Our patients are canceling. We're having to figure out, how does Zoom work? What is Zoom? What is Skype? Which platform can I use? It's a mess. I've got so many people asking me around Zoom and how it works. And I've done demos upon demos. And the thing is, we are forced to kind of slow down right now. And I would invite you to say, if we are in a preparation phase, we're going to need all the resources we can get, including our own emotional and physical resources. And that's kind of where we're gonna go next week as well, accepting what we got, not what we wanted. I'm gonna hand over to my panel now, where we're gonna do a bit of a Q&A, and I see they have started answering the questions already. And you are welcome to answer questions and to ask questions anonymously as well. We've specifically gone for the webinar platform because we wanted to say, we want you to be able to be anonymous. If we went for the meetings platform on Zoom, it would have been everybody's on the screen, everybody's hearing what everybody's saying. You can actually be anonymous, and also if we're going to give details of it later on, that you can actually contact us independently as well if you really feel like you want to. So I'm going to throw it back at the panel. Miriam, I'm going to go to Dr. Clayson and Dr. Ramos. So I'm going to go to you guys first. I don't know if one of you maybe want to start answering one of the questions. I see, Miriam, you've already answered one of the questions. Miriam, Tria, do you want to give it a bash? One of you maybe answering a question. You're just going to have to unmute yourself. That's important.
Yes. Hi, thank you so much, Werner. Hi to all the crowd. So thank you so much for joining us today. I would just like to answer the anonymous attendee. Being at home in a less structured environment, I feel less productive. As if I'm not motivated to do anything. I have enough to do, personal and work activities, but have difficulty to start complete activities. Normal structure work day helped me to focus. Now I feel a bit slow, lethargic, and not motivated. So I would like to just answer. Just turn down.
Yeah, Tria, maybe just turn down your sound.
We go.
Excellent. There we go.
So I think, definitely a way that helps is to have a good routine. What this will be about would be that try and maintain your normal structure in terms of work as much as possible. Go to bed the same time every night. Try and get a good night's sleep in, and then get up in the morning at your usual time. As I always say, get up, dress up, and show up. So as if you're going to the workspace, I would like you to just do everything as you normally would, and set aside time so that in the morning you'd need to go and do your work, go and have a good lunch, do some exercise at home. Basic lifestyle techniques are essential as much as possible that we can keep going with regards to making sure you're eating healthily, sleeping well, and having a good and healthy diet. And also, this would be a good time to maybe try and find that long lost guitar that maybe you put away somewhere, or find a hobby, or do something that you've always wanted to do, but also have a structure. So in the afternoon, for example, maybe put aside an hour or two to go and do something new, something stimulating, something motivating that you've always wanted to do, but never had the time to get around to doing that. So I think it's about, again, to use another cliche term, unfortunately, fake it till you make it. Get up and do something, but let's also just keep the structure and the routine going.
Okay, fabulous. Tria, I don't know if you've got anything that you want to add to that.
Hi. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a picture here. Okay, welcome everybody. Just to add to what Miriam has said, one of the difficulties in this time is that we actually aren't able to normal coping skills. Most of us go to gym, or we take a run, or we go out and have a coffee like Werner mentioned early on, and we're unable to do that. So just to add to what she said, you need to actually find new ways right now. It's the things that you've left behind that you wanted to do, maybe start playing the guitar as she mentioned, learning to cook again. There's a lot of online courses where they're offering free cooking skills. There's a lot of online courses where they're allowing you to read all the books. The Harry Potter, I understand, becoming, and they read you to actually take cognizance of it and start learning new activities. Thanks.
Okay. Awesome. So Thria, I think one of the other questions, Anneke, we're going to throw it back at you just in a little while. So Miriam, to you and Thria, maybe, obviously you're a psychiatrist, and I think you having worked in government as well, I think that's where a big part of the, there's so much need there. Where I think, how do you think we can support our colleagues? You'll see there's a couple of questions that that have come through that's asking, how do we support our colleagues through this time? Yeah, Miriam, I'm just going to ask you the question again. So, how do we actually support our colleagues?
Okay, so firstly, there's a lot of ways that we can support our colleagues. The first thing is to actually get them to understand that there was a terminology coined for them by a army nurse who actually worked on the front lines during the Ebola crisis. And he wrote an article where he described healthcare professionals as force multipliers. So essentially, our training and our experiences, especially those on the front line, is quite invaluable as we move into this crisis. And we're faced with difficult moments, and we often, what we've been taught to do is always put our patients first. But I think we need to change that way of thinking, especially amongst the doctors out there. And we actually need to take time for ourselves. So as healthcare professionals, especially in the mental health field, I think we need to encourage our doctors out there on the front lines, and the nurses and the psychologists and other staff properly, as Maria mentioned. They have exercise even within their homes.
Yes.
The other thing that listening to them. All we need is an ear.
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
Okay to be angry. It's okay. All the state grief. Ultimately, non.
Okay. So Thria, I think we've lost you there. I think your internet connection might be a bit unstable. So Anneke, I'm going to throw it back at you. Anneke, what are some things that you find quite useful? Because I know most of us are actually in our practices, we are seeing healthcare professionals as well. Anneke, I don't know, some of the things that you can maybe suggest too, because there's a couple of people asking specifically around how do we support colleagues? I think that's a very, very important question.
Yeah. I think, Werner, most of us talk about the virus all the time, even in our home environment. So we have to take a break from talking about the virus and actually create other things that we can talk about, and do things that are not virus related. I agree with Thria, creating within ourselves a good routine would also be helpful. And when we then talk to our colleagues, to refer back to that. This is what I'm doing to help me. How about you trying something similar? Last night I chatted to a colleague, and I think from a DBT perspective, most of the skills that we teach our clients, we can also share with our colleagues. That's been helpful to them, to our clients, can also be helpful to our colleagues. So self-soothing, for example, finding pleasant activities in this time would be very, very helpful, and getting to the stuff that we normally complain we don't get to when we have time to actually do that.
Fantastic. Look, I found the one thing that there's a DBT concept called radical genuineness. And I think in this time, it's for me, I find it really useful to sometimes when I am feeling overwhelmed, when I am feeling a certain way, is to actually share that with a colleague as well. I see, I see often this paradoxical dance I've spoken about. What breaks the paradox is often genuineness. It's just being really honest. I know the other night we were talking and we were talking around what is it that we do, and we were kind of laughing about. We say we just eat more chocolates. And I think it's part of the challenge that we have is exactly that, is how do we support colleagues and how do we support friends colleagues and friends in doing this. Are you guys still there?
Are we still here? Thanks.
Okay,
yes, we are.
Okay, great stuff. So I see there's a couple of questions that have come through. Maybe you and Miriam, are there anything that you feel like you can answer? I think there's a couple of anonymous questions that have come through.
Hi, Werner, and hi team. There is a question I'm just responding to Nazira Kaida with regards to being a psychologist in public service. And I just was basically answering that I think no matter where you are, be it private, be it public, as a psychologist, as a healthcare worker, again, as we've been saying, at the forefront of this pandemic. And in terms of usefulness, I think we can go as a psychologist in the public service, maybe to go to the other departments and actually go and offer all the other healthcare workers in those departments an opportunity to either have focus groups, to either have one-on-one sessions, and to actually take your services and your expertise to colleagues. Because what we've been saying all along is we always, we are very client and patient-centric, which is essential, but I also think we need to be aware that so too our colleagues and other healthcare professionals also need our assistance and professional care. So yeah, I think that's something that we can look at in terms of across the board. This is maybe more of a private initiative, but it doesn't have to be in terms of what we're doing today. Maybe what can be set up in terms of the hospitals, in terms of CPD points, so then you get the whole group together and everyone can come and just have a chance to say what's on their mind and how they're feeling.
So can I just add on that? There is an initiative that we have started. Sorry, I'm just waiting to mute. So there's an initiative that a whole lot of psychologists and psychiatrists in the private and public sector have actually started. And basically it's called the COVID-19 Mental Health Care Force for Gauteng. So we're looking at Gauteng being the epicenter. And what we've done is we're looking at a two-prong approach. We're looking at one, from the top down, actually managing to help the leaders of the response teams. So to offer them psychological support, psychiatric support, help them to maintain the team cohesion within their hospitals. And the second aspect is to actually offer them a list of practitioners who may be willing to either do pro bono work or to do some sort of either individual or group therapy. So there is for those of you who do want to work, there is an email address that you can contact, which is careforgauteng@gmail.com. And we're actually really, really, really excited if any of you would consider joining us. I think all of us on board here want to help. We just don't know how to help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Look, you've just frozen, so I'm not sure if you're finished, but I'm going to...
Thanks.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing from you, Thea, and I think this is something very, very important, is that everybody's busy with something. So, well, not everybody, but I think there's a lot of initiatives. For example, I've been speaking to someone that's at SISA, and he's coordinating across the country, he's coordinating different things. Hanneke, I know with the TASA, there's so much going on. And obviously from your side, Thea, it's a SASOP initiative. It's psychiatrists and psychologists that are basically, or psychiatrists that are joined together and say, listen, we want to help. And I think we've got so many people doing things, and hopefully this group will just give you access to those things. And like I said, this is the time in the week where you can come and you can say, well, this 1 hour, I'm getting something, but also I'm getting introduced to a lot of initiatives. Hanneke, I don't know if you maybe want to say one or two things about what ITASA is doing at the moment. because I know they're also busy with some initiatives for occupational therapists.
Yeah, so we are starting online chats individually to help OTs cope. And then also on Monday between 3 and 4, we'll actually starting with a support group for occupational therapists. It will be on Zoom, and the communication should go out during the course of this weekend, if not today.
Okay, fantastic. Look, I think from SISA's side as well, I've been speaking to someone at SISA, and they're also busy with amazing initiatives for psychologists. I know, for example, on this group, I think there's about 3 pediatricians that have joined us today. I know there's a surgeon that's joined us today. Even though we haven't specifically mentioned those professions today, I want to invite you. If you are one of those professions, that you do reach out to us, because there's a reason why you're here today. It's the reason you've taken an hour out of your week to say, I actually want to join. Because I know, for example, surgeons, they're not allowed to do any elective procedures at the moment, which means most of them are sitting at home. My father is a surgeon, and he's literally sitting at home because he's not allowed to do any elective surgeries. Pediatricians, once again, there's so much people actually being impacted by this. Miriam, I don't know if you maybe want to just add to what Theo said, because I think there's, at the moment, especially in government, we're finding that a system that might already have resource shortages, and I think you've mentioned a couple of things already. What are some of the things that if you were to speak to a government employed psychiatrist, psychologist right now, and they were to come to you for therapy today, and they were to say, I'm so overwhelmed, we're in an active phase, which we hope won't happen, but let's say it does, what would you tell that person right now? I think that's important, because I think that's a question a lot of us have towards our colleagues as well. So let's say they come for therapy today, what would you tell that person?
Thanks, Werner. I think, in terms of just being mindful that this is quite frightening, and it's uncertain times, and that's okay. It's to acknowledge that this is what it is at this moment, that we're all uncertain, but also to say that, to remind them of the skills and the expertise that they do have. They are completely capable, competent, they have resources that they can utilize for themselves, and that they can also give to others to also help their patients. So I think it would be just a place of being mindful, doing the breathing exercise, saying, I know this is quite frightening, but it's okay to be frightened, because we've got support, we are all holding each other. I think these kind of platforms is a way to show that you are being held, you are being supported, that you can reach out for assistance, as we are putting up all the various support structures that are available. And also, if you can't, I have just been looking at some of the questions in terms of, obviously, some people cannot work, but I think also maybe volunteer, if you can, maybe go and do a shop for some of the elderly people.
Yes.
There are various other groups, that are being offered. Maybe pick up the phone that you can phone and support a stranger. So I think it's about, being aware of where you are, but also utilizing your skills and spreading it out in this time. So here we are, as I say, if you've got lemons, let's make lemonade. Let's try and do the best that we can for ourselves and for our patients and for our community. Absolutely.
I think one of the things that I've also found in speaking to colleagues is, in the midst of the fact that they're facing something which if I hear the word unprecedented one more time, because everybody's using the word unprecedented, I don't know if you've also seen it, like everywhere you learn, everywhere you read, people go unprecedented. But anyway, but the bottom line is probably the worst thing you can do is to go into your shell and hide, because it's something that we've got skills. And despite the fact that we feel quite powerless in situation because we feel disempowered by the environment, it's something that what I'm hearing from you, Theo, what I'm hearing from you, Miriam, what I'm hearing from you, Hanneke, as well, is engage, use the skills you've got, trust the skills you've got, and then start doing something. I mean, with this group that we've started now, it started as an idea. It started as, okay, well, let's start something. And I mean, I'm not going to say how many we are in the group today, but it's way more than what we expected. But anyway, it's something that I would like to encourage all of you. Anneke, is it something you'd like to maybe say in conclusion? Yeah.
We have quite a number of questions, Werner, and I'm just wondering, would we have time to answer them, or would we answer them offline?
Okay, we can answer them offline. What I'm maybe going to ask is I'm going to give an email address. I'm going to actually give 2 email addresses at the end that I'd like you to, if the questions weren't answered, I'd like you to email your question to that email address. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to forward it to the team, and then the team can decide how they want to respond, because I'm also aware of time and that you guys have taken out of your morning already. So Anneke, I hear what you're saying. I think we've got a lot of questions, and what I'm going to give an email address now that you guys can actually send this to, and we can respond. I'll send it to the team, to the panelists, and we can take it from there. So we've got about 4 minutes left. I'd like to just finish off with what's next. What are the next steps? Obviously, if you were here and you said, I'm here to learn or to listen, that's amazing and welcome. And I hope today has been informative for you. So what I'm going to ask you, if you're just here to read or up on, if you're just here to learn and to listen, go and Google distress tolerance and reality acceptance skills. You can Google them separately or interchangeably, but Google distress tolerance and reality acceptance skills, because that's what we're going to cover next week. We obviously, just the topic being, accepting what we got, not what we wanted. We're going to look at how do I actually deal with my own distress? What are practical ways in which I can regulate my own emotions? But also, how do I actually accept what's happening now? Not in a way that I'm begrudgingly accepting it, but I'm actually saying it activates myself in terms of generating resources and generating new ideas. The fact that I can actually move from a state of I am unhappy about what's happening right now to I'm definitely not choosing what's happening right now, but I'm able to accept it, which means I'm able to go into resource generation or even access new resources. The second thing is if you want to link up. Now, the panelists today, Hanneke is the head of our skills training at the DBT Institute. Dr. Thria Ramasai is the head of our adolescent unit, and Dr. Miriam Klaus, head of our adult unit. But we're also connected to ITASA, SASA, SISA, different units. So we are in a way hoping to just be almost like a dialing. It's a space where people can come to and they can get the support for the hour, but we can also refer them to the appropriate people if needs be. There are so many people that's doing something at the moment, and we're collaborating with all of those people. If you are saying I want to link up, and you are saying I'm just saying we are collaborating with different stakeholders to ensure healthcare practitioners are prioritized. This hour is for healthcare professionals. If you would like to volunteer, please send your details to online@dbtinstitute.co.za. I would also say, if you've got questions that haven't been answered today, please send it to online@dbtinstitute.co.za. Because then I'm going to forward it to the team and they can respond, at their own leisure. And then the last thing is, if you need support or motivation, I'm going to ask you, please send your details to info@dbtinstitute.co.za, info@dbtinstitute.co.za. We would like to get in touch with you personally to see how we can assist, because this is very important. Like I said, there's many initiatives, and we would like to try and see how we can connect you to the right people. So this hour is hopefully a place of support, but then also when you are not during this hour, but outside, you can access therapy if you need to, etc. Okay. Thria, Miriam, Hanneke, thank you so much for joining me. And everybody that's attended today, it was really great to have all of you here. I don't know, Hanneke, Thria, Miriam, if you want to say any last words.
Just to say thank you so much, Werner, for establishing this initiative. I think, hopefully it's a safe space where people can come to get help and to learn and to be supported. And we can just increase our community of support.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think Look after yourselves. We are looking after other people all the time. It's important that you also look after yourself.
Okay. Tria?
Thanks very much, everybody, for actually joining us today. I hope it was useful. And we're looking forward to answering your questions to the best of our ability. And as Hanneke said, please take care of yourselves.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Excellent. Okay, guys, have a wonderful week. It's now exactly 9 o'clock. I hope you have a stunning week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.